Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Right, morning, everyone. Hello. So my name's Matt. I'm a professor of orthopedic trauma, so you might wonder what the hell I'm doing in your meeting, but I will soon sort of leave you to it. So welcome to Oxford, welcome to Oxford University. I also happen to be a fellow of Wolston College, so welcome to Wolston. We're pretty proud of this room you're in. It's all kind of new and shiny at the moment. I've just broken the rules already by bringing coffee in here, but hopefully I see Toby's already drinking as well, illegally in the new lecture theatre. Anyway, but I hope you enjoy the facilities in the college, and even more importantly, I hope you enjoy the next 4 days as well exploring Oxford. So, you know, unanticipated problems, things you don't think will come up. So yesterday during the FFM board meeting, the Italian complained it was too hot in Oxford. That wasn't something we anticipated in there, but we have managed to get the weather at least for today. So please do take advantage and have a good look around Oxford while you're here. So I'm really excited for the whole week really, but particularly excited about today. And why is that? Well, some of you will be aware that the Fragility Fracture Network's been going since 2008. So our own Dave Marsh was the founding president, and it's kind of grown very quickly since then, from a small meeting of activists in Berlin to now 1,300 members in 92 countries from all continents around the world. So it's got very big very quickly. But about 5 years ago, we had a bit of a problem because we were starting to get known and things were starting to happen. People around the world were appreciating the importance of looking after older, frail, potentially patients with fragility fractures. But what was the message of FFN? So we worked with some other societies, but led by the Fragility Fracture Network, to create something called the Call to Action, which was this document that you may have seen. It was published in Injury, but it's been distributed in lots of different forms all around the world. And thanks largely to the hard work of this guy, Paul Mitchell, who many of you will know, it's now been endorsed by over 80 of the international societies, organisations that look after patients with fragility fractures. And we're now moving on to national approvals, and Paul's hoping to go for 1,000 of those. So this has really caught the imagination of the world. And that's brilliant for those of us who are enthusiastic about fragility fractures. But what did the call to action actually say? Well, this was it.
What was it, Matt?
Yeah. And the central pillar to the call to action for FFN was about rehabilitation. And that's why I think today's workshop, along with the other rehab sessions during the rest of the Congress, are the most important things that are happening in here. So just for a moment, thinking about the UK, well, I think we've got some of the best acute care now in the world. I'm not suggesting we've not got places to improve, but in most hospitals now, we've got multidisciplinary teams of surgeons and anaesthetists and geriatricians and physiotherapists and occupational therapists working together in teams. We kind of got that happening. And although fracture liaison services by no means covered across the UK, they're in most hospitals now. There's a wave of enthusiasm for that. But I would suggest that the bit that we're absolutely lacking on is the rehab. Now, I know that's a dangerous thing to say for people in this room, but I see that as an opportunity because I think we're so far behind the curve in other parts of the world in the UK that actually that means we can improve massively over the next few years. And that's why bringing together you guys that Kathy and Dave have done with this meeting is so important, to share best practice ideas. And that's really the theme for the Congress. Can we take what's working brilliantly in Denmark or Australia and transfer it into the UK, and even more importantly, into India and China and Brazil and the Philippines, where the new fragility fracture networks are. So why is this so important? Well, this is some data, just one graph for you, and many of you have seen this before. This is UK data on hip fracture outcomes. This is quality of life, and this has been replicated by Lauren in Canada and other places around the world as well. We just completed analysis for a 20,000 patient hip fracture cohort in the UK, and this is what happens to quality of life after your hip fracture. So this scale, I love this because even orthopedic surgeons can understand this. So it's anchored on 0 and 1, where 0 is dead. So that's a health state equivalent to being dead. And 1 is perfect health. So that moment in your life when you're 18, you're on the beach and you're the best health you've ever had in that moment. And the scale goes in between and each goes down below 0 as well. So before a hip fracture, on the day before their injury, the average hip fracture patient in the UK has a quality of life about 0.6, just below 0.6. So what does that mean? It means that these group of patients are frail and have low quality of life before they injure themselves. Now, I know you know this already, but actually getting this data out there to the policymakers was really important. Immediately after the injury, their quality of life is officially worse than being dead. You might think, well, that makes no sense at all. But if you're in the worst pain you've ever had, if you can't move, you can't look after yourself, and you're frightened to death, then if that was a permanent state of health, how many of us would want to continue living in that state? Now, fortunately, there's hope. So in the first few days after the surgery, if we get the surgery right, then people improve up to 30 days and a little bit more up to 4 months. But there's a 20% deficit, a 0.2 on this quality of life scale deficit that's permanent, and nothing happens after the 4-month point. In fact, there's an age-related deterioration after. So just to put that into context, what does that mean? Why is that important? Well, that 20% drop in quality of life is equivalent to a diagnosis of MS or Parkinson's, and in the same ballpark as having a stroke. When you think about the attention that are on those conditions, the clinical attention and the research funding, and you think how little money goes into fragility fractures and looking after those patients, well, that's a travesty. That's a public health disaster. So that's why this data is so important. But even more important than that, when we went to the patients, and this is again UK data, but replicated in other parts of the world as well, and asked the patients and the healthcare professionals, not the researchers, what they thought were the priorities in their recovery after a fragility fracture. Are you all familiar with the James Lind Alliance? You all know that it's a partnership between patients and healthcare professionals to create a consensus of what research priorities are. It takes 2 years and an awful lot of work. Several people in the room, including Dave, were involved in that. And this is what we did for lower limb fragility fractures, and we've just done it again for upper limb fragility fractures. So what were the top 10 list? You create a top 10 from it. Well, these are the top 2. So now we've got data, hard data on the patient's outcomes that show their quality of life is massively affected by fragility fractures. And then we've got data from the healthcare professionals and the patients to tell us the most important thing for them is their rehabilitation. So over to you guys. This is what this day is about. I'm really excited about this, and I hope you're going to spread this enthusiasm from this meeting into the rest of the Congress. Do have a good look around Oxford while you're here. We were watching the punting from the river there and watched a lady fall in and lose her glasses at the bottom of the river. So I'm not necessarily recommending the punting, but do give it a go if you've got a bit of time. What do you say? Brilliant. I'm going to stop there. So I'm just stay there for now.